you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today is going to be the update to the Fury build, the Stamina Dragonknight PvP build for the Greymoor Chapter. Now this has been used a lot in the past, it's had several updates, but it hasn't had one for quite some time because it really didn't need one. But since obviously Mid-Year Mayhem is now live, or at least it is when you're watching this video, it's a relevant time, especially with Greymoor being out, to actually update the build. And it has been changed a little bit, especially with the new system involved, but we won't get to that too early. We'll show you that when it gets to the gear. So, first of all, we're going to go into the stats. I am going to get in a duel quickly just so I can show all the shininess, because obviously we don't have PvP stats in my house, but we will see what we've got flat out. Okay, now that we've got our PvP stats, let's put our buffs on. We are sitting on 30.9k max health, 1k recovery, 33.8k max stamina, and 3596 weapon damage, which does go up with our glyphs and massively with our sets. Resistances is 21.7 and 18.4, and we've got 3.6k crit resist. We do have 30% weapon crit. That's not massively important, but it will help towards our heals. We have 64 points into max stamina with the Love of Munderstone. Stage 1 Vampire, I'll go over that later. I'm not dumping that passive. And we're using flat food. However, the food is a choice that you can make, but it will alter your stats. So, if you do decide to change your food, you can go from the flat stuff to our Tayum Takeaway Broth, which I generally prefer, especially in Battlegrounds. This is if you are comfortable heavy attacking more often. This stuff will put you towards 28k health and 31k stamina instead, so your flat stats have been reduced, but your recovery, once we get our bonuses back on, they fell off, is 1.6 almost. So 1599 stamina recovery instead of 1000. So there is a substantial difference there to recovery. Again, it depends on the player. If you're comfortable heavy attacking, especially during off balance, you're not going to have any issue with sustained with flat stuff. If you are uncomfortable with that and you YOLO a little bit too much, you might want to go more recovery. Choice is yours. Again, Love of Munderstone, Vampire Stage 1. We will go over this in the passives. Now, I'm going to go into the skills in detail. I'm going to explain every single one of these, where they come from, what they do, how you should apply them, all that good stuff. If you want to skip this part, of course, it's entirely up to you. But just bear in mind, if you do ask questions in the comment section below, and I've already answered them here, I won't be responding to those comments because it's already been done. So, first of all is Stampede. This is in the two-handed skill line. Very simply put, this is your gap closer. Second ability to unlock starts off as Critical Charge, morph it to Stampede. This will get you into the fight very, very quickly, and you will actually single target hit the person that you attack. And you'll charge at them from up to 22 meters away and end up in their position. Now, this does also apply something a little more special, and that is it will put a ground-based area of effect damage over time on the floor. Now, it doesn't do that much damage, but people do tend to ignore this, and it's very easy to kind of tick over and do that extra damage when they don't even notice. So this is a very good get in quickly button, but it does apply damage over time on the ground as well. So if anyone wants to be in your face on purpose, they will take additional damage. Dizzy Swing is quite simple. First ability to unlock in a two-handed skill line. Starts off as Uppercut, morph it to Dizzy Swing. This is your main spammable. It takes 0.8 seconds to channel, so you can't obviously animation cancel it, and if you do try to block cancel this at all, it will actually cancel the whole skill. It won't fire. Only instacast abilities can be animation cancelled. But with this, it's pretty simple. Light attack, hit, light attack, hit, light attack, hit. This is your main spammable. It does a lot of physical damage, and if you hit the target, it knocks them off balance for 7 seconds. Now, if you've paid attention enough to base mechanics, or maybe you don't know, if something is off balance and you heavy attack it, you will get double resources back, you will do 70% more damage with your heavy attack, and you will knock the target down. It will stun them. But if you hit an enemy that is already off balance, it will also stun them. So if you hit them with 2, they get stunned straight away. Also, targets that are immune to off balance are snared by 40%. So if you hit someone with this and you knock them off balance, then obviously you get the benefit from that. More damage from your champion points if you've got them there. Harder heavy attack, more resources. You hit them again, you'll stun them. And if the immunity is kicked in, so 7 seconds uptime, 15 seconds immune, you'll snare them. So you knock them off balance, you hit them hard. You knock them again, you stun them. They break free. You knock them again because they're immune and they're slow. This is a crippling ability. It's very, very nasty. Single target spammable. Make sure, of course, you utilize this as much as you possibly can. But I would highly encourage you to definitely heavy attack if the target's off, because it will help your sustain and you will hit them harder, especially when you get to the passives. Now, Hardened Armor is up next. This is in our Draconic Power skill line. It's very simply put, this is our resistance buff. So you basically get Hardened Armor morphed from Spike Armor originally. This will give you Major Resolve, which is 5280 physical resistances for 20 seconds. And it'll give you a small damage shield scaled off of your max health for initiating it. So for 6 seconds you get damage shield as well. So if you want this for a resistance buff, you just turn it on. If you want the damage shield again, you can reactivate it and it will restart the timer. But it does get quite expensive, so be careful, don't spam it. Also, if someone hits you with direct damage or a direct attack in melee range, they will actually get back damage from you. So the shield that you're holding on your person, the one that is a buffer to you, will actually damage other enemies. So it's kind of like thorns, if you like. They hit you, they get hit back. It's not massive, but it does contribute. Rally is up next. It's in the two-handed skill line. 5th ability unlocks. It takes some time to get there. Starts off as momentum, morph it to rally. Very simply put, this is our main damage boosting skill and heal. So for activating it, you'll get major brutality, increasing your weapon damage by 20% for 20 seconds, and you'll get minor endurance, increasing your stam recovery, which is quite helpful, of course. But at the same time, you will heal when this ends. Now, when this ends means whenever it runs out or whenever you reactivate it. But for the duration that it's been active, each second longer adds a 15% increased heal, up to a maximum of 300%. So if you let it go its full duration, you'll get a heal plus 300%, and you can crit or not crit it. If you do it after 1 second, you only get 15%. 2 seconds, you get 30, and so on and so forth. So the longer you leave this running, before you try and claim that heal, the better. But you must keep it active all the time anyway, because you want to get the major brutality. Next up, of course, is Reverse Slice. This is amazing. This is our execute. So if the targets go low health, it says under 50%, but in PvP I tend to go for them under 30, maybe under 25%. This will get progressively stronger. So the lower their health, the more damage you do, up to 300% more damage. The other morph of this does do more damage single target, but this does extra damage because it hits enemies around you for 78% of the damage inflicted on the primary target. This build is all about doing damage after damage has been done. What that means is, if you get kills, you will get stronger and stronger and stronger. So hit and hit and hit and hit again. The more targets you can hit with this, the better. You want to get in to a massive cluster and start executing people, and people will die in a very short period of time. But use this at low health. Our main ultimate on the front bar is Take Flight, of course, Batman. This is what we call it on the stream. This is in your Draconic Power skill line. You get a level 12 in this skill line itself. Starts off as Dragon Leap, morph it to Take Flight. 113 ultimate, very cheap. You can get it cheaper, of course, but we are a vampire, so our cost is a little bit up. And this will do damage in an 8-meter radius, but it will launch you up into the air and land on the target from up to 28 meters away, doing massive physical damage to all enemies caught inside of it. Obviously, you have to have a target to aim it, but once you aim at that target, surrounding enemies will hit as well. All of them get knocked back, and they get stunned for 2 seconds as well. Very, very nasty skill, very cheap. This is your kind of, I'm now going to kill you button. So try not to use it at the wrong time. If you use it to initiate a fight and someone's very, very tanky, you just wasted your ultimate. Use this as a kind of knockdown, stun finisher just before you kick off with your execute. Or you can use it to jump into a massive amount of enemies after you've just killed somebody else. That's going to be more relevant when we get to the gear. It takes a little bit of figuring out, but it's very, very strong indeed. Now, we are using Echoing Vigor. You can use Resolving Vigor if you choose to. However, this is in the Assault skill line. Starts off as Vigor, morph it to Echoing Vigor. This version lasts 10 seconds, so your recovery is going to be much, much better if you're actively using this versus the other one. The reason being is the other one only lasts 4 seconds, this lasts 10. The other one has faster ticks, but this one has more spread out ones. So this is every 2 seconds rather than every 1. And if you apply this and then reapply it instantly, you get no benefit. So for us, we just use it once every 10 seconds if we have to. The other one, you have to use it every 4 if you're in trouble, and you will nuke your stamina very, very quickly. However, the player may want to change this to a stronger, shorter heal. It is your choice entirely. I like to contribute towards other people's heals as well, but if you wanted to have just one heal for you, and you only, and you can keep on top of your sustain, you can swap it out if you want. Either way, have Vigor in any way, shape, or form on this bar. Poison Injection is next. This is in our bow skill line. You do want this because this is also a passive finisher. Starts off as Poison Arrow, morph it to Poison Injection. Does single target poison damage over time with an initial hit for 10 seconds. And the lower their health, the more damage you do. So under 50%, this gets stronger and stronger and stronger. If that's active at the same time as you're smashing them with this, they are under high pressure. So make sure you keep this on all targets. Anyone that you're going up against. If there's 10 enemies in front of you, of course, don't put it on 10 enemies. But if there's a couple, make sure both of them have got this on them. And definitely keep this on single target at all times. Next up is Razor Caltrops, and this is a flex slot. You can change this out if you prefer. It depends on the situation. It doesn't take much to change a skill real quick, but this is in the Assault skill line, if I can find it. There it is. Starts off as Caltrop, morph it to Razor Caltrops. This is quite simple. It does damage over time, every 1 second, to enemies caught inside of this, and you can fling it up to 28 meters away, depending on, obviously, Cyrodiil buffs, because you can get it much, much further, depending on if you're near a keep, and we won't go into all those. But this is a bit devastating for a big cluster of enemies, because anyone caught inside of this, every time they take damage, they get Major Fracture applied to them again. Now, they don't stack, but it does refresh. So you get 5280 as a physical resistance debuff on them for 4 seconds. If they stay in there for 5 seconds, it's started all over again. They've still got the debuff, there's nothing they can do. So stupid people running in and out of this will constantly be debuffed, which is a big benefit for you because you want the physical penetration bonus for yourself to be able to nuke them faster. However, if you don't like using this one, or you find it a bit too expensive, or you don't really find yourself throwing stuff at long range too much, you can of course swap it out for another Major Fracture skill, which is more close range and cheaper, and that is Noxus Breath, which is in the Ardent Flame skill line. It is the third ability you unlock, starts off as Fiery Breath, morph it to Noxus. Very simple, you breathe poison in front of you, same debuff is applied, even if they run away it stays with them for the full 14 seconds, and they take damage over time as well. This one does do more damage, it does have a longer duration if they're trying to run away, but the situation can warrant one or the other. It depends on you personally and the fight you're in. Personally, I quite like Caltrops, especially when people come to me and I just sit inside my debuff and I don't have to cast anything else, but it's up to you. Next up is a flex slot also. Currently, we have Igneous Shields in here. This is here for several reasons. It's an Earth and Heart skill line, third ability you unlock, and of course starts off as Obsidian Shield. If you morph it to Igneous Shield, the shield is stronger for you based on your maximum health. So the more health, the bigger the shield. Remember, shields are halved in PvP. Now, this also shields other people, which is quite helpful. But we don't really want it for the massive damage shield or the small damage shield, depending on the situation. You might have lower health at the time. We want it for the Major Mending and for some passives. So if we activate this, we will get a small shield, we'll have a tiny bit of protection, and we will get Major Mending, meaning that our healing done is 25% stronger for 3 seconds. So if you activate this, pop a Vigor, and hit Rally, your heals are huge. So that is the reason for that, alongside the passives. If you don't need it or you don't want it, you can of course opt for other things. If you are heavy attacking quite a lot, you can opt for Molten Armaments, which will increase your heavy attacks by 50%. Remember, it's a very long durated buff, so you don't have to keep spamming it. Or you could use Fossilize, but this is very situational. You encase an enemy in stone and stun them for 3 seconds, and when the stun ends, they take magic damage and they are immobilized for 3 seconds. So they get stunned, they break out, and now they can't move anyway. But this is a very, very close quarter range ability, and if they've already been stunned and they're on immunity, you can't actually activate it because you can't re-stun somebody. So this depends on the situation. You've got a few options there, but if you just want some protection and a bit of healing, Ignis Shields is fine. Watch your magic as sustain though, because we don't have much. You can of course use Stone Giant, but you don't really need that as a spammable because we've already got one, which is coming next. Lethal Arrow is a long-ranged, spammable, and debuff. Why do I say that? Because this is very important, because people don't understand the skill. This, first of all, is very long range, 35 meters. Now, this has a channel time, 1 second, so you will have to be aware of that. You can't just spam it really, really fast like you can with normal spammables, and you can't animation cancel it either. So it's light attack, hit, wait, light attack, hit, wait, so on and so forth. However, this does massive poison damage on single target, and it guarantees a poison status effect. So, poison status effects are a single target damage over time poison ability, and it benefits us as a Dragonknight, as do the costs of this skill, but we'll go to that in a minute. And also, if you hit an enemy with this, you will affect them with minor defile. It used to be major, but now it's minor, but it's still very, very strong. Now, one of the biggest problems you'll ever see in PvP is that people run around, light attack, light attack, light attack, light attack, in massive, massive zergs, trying to take someone down that will never, ever die. Do you know why? None of them are applying healing debuffs, and healing is too high in PvP. So, you hit them with minor defile, or major defile, or both, and then you try and kill them, and then their heals are nuked. So this initially is not just for the massive damage to start the fight, not just for the poison status effect, but also as a debuff. It reduces healing and health recovery. This says 18%, it's supposed to be 15, but we've got some champion point alterations there. This is still also very, very good in non-CP, even if you don't have the push to befoul. So this is your lead up to the fight. You make sure they are hit first of all. They are defiled. They've got a dot on them. They can't heal very well unless they cleanse it. You've got your poison injection on them. This is your lead up to the fight. So you want to hit them with this, and don't forget your light attacks. They've got 2 damage over time abilities, big hit, and this is going to get worse the lower the health they get. Some people, if they're really squishy, you can actually just kill them on this bar while you're chasing them. And if they're running into your caltrops, you hit them even harder because they just got resistances removed. So these are very good abilities to have on your back bar, not just for the sake of spamming them, but also for their negative effects to the enemy in terms of damage over time, resistance stripping, and their defile. Next up, of course, is our oh shit button, corrosive armor. This is in our Earth and Heart skill line. You need level 12 in this skill line to get it. Starts off as magma armor, morph it to corrosive armor. This is really simple. You activate this, and all incoming damage is capped at 3% of your max health, and you do a small area of effect poison damage every second. Now, for 12 seconds, you also ignore all resistances, physical resistances, for direct damage abilities. So, if you're in trouble, you activate this, you're very hard to kill. Great. But during that time, Dizzy and Swing, the initial hit of Stampede, all your light and heavy attacks, your Execute, your Batman, your Lethal Arrow, your Poison Injection initial hit, and your light attacks obviously on the back bar as well, are all ignoring physical resistances. So even if you're not in trouble and someone's trying to run away from you and you can't quite catch them with Batman because they're just really fast, but you think your snipe will reach them, you think you can keep up with that, or just in general, you don't want to use the front bar ultimate, you want to make sure they die quickly while they're putting out of a fight and running away. So, activate this, 0 armor to them, spam this, they're dead. Or chase them and smack them with this. Choice is yours, whichever you want to do it. Every fight is different, but protection and 0 resistances for the target all at once. Now, we are packing a lot of physical resistance debuffing, but that's because this is not up 100% of the time. But when it is, it's on. Now, passives. Ardent Flame is very important. Pay attention to these. This will increase the damage of your Burn and Poison's status effects. So, Burn and status effect from Flame if you're using any fire stuff, which we're technically not. And Poison status effect if you're using anything to do with Poison, which we are. We've got this if we use it. We've got Lethal Arrow. We've got Poison Injection. You've got Noxus Breath if you choose to. You've got your poisons on your back bar, which we'll get to later. And, of course, you are guaranteed a poison status effect from this skill. So, with that in mind, if you do apply a poison status effect, you will do 50% more damage with it, and you will get 500 stamina back. So, while this ability costs 1.9k, you actually get 500 back instantly. And any further poison damage you do could fire another poison status effect to give us 500 back again. That's a very important passive. Make sure you get it and do utilize that skill. When you deal direct damage with Ardent Flame ability, you reduce the enemy's movement speed. We're not really using any Ardent Flame direct abilities apart from Noxus Breath occasionally if we choose to. The initial hit is direct, so that will originally obviously affect them with the snare, but the rest of the ability won't. This increases the damage over time of Fire Breath, Searing Strike, and Dragonknight standard abilities. We're not using the banner, we're not using Venom Claw, we could use Noxus Breath, so this does benefit us in that situation, but if you're not using it at all, you don't need it. This increases the area effect damage of your flame abilities. We're not using any, not even the banner, but this does decrease the cost of all stamina poison costing abilities. So if you had Noxus Breath on, it's cheaper. If you were to use Venom Claw for whatever reason, that's cheaper too. Poison Injection is already cheaper for us, and our main spammable on our back bar while entering a fight, or even just staying at range, is cheaper by 25%. 25% reduction to cost and 500 stamina back every time you apply the poison status effect. So this is extremely cheap and keeps us in the fight for quite a long period of time. It's quite hard to run out if using this versus this. So when you're in the face of the enemy, you're likely to drain yourself a bit. When you're out in the open, you're not. Now, Draconic Power, I did miss a flex slot on this actually, so we'll go over that quickly first. Protective Scale, morph to Dragon Scale. You can well, it used to reflect. It doesn't quite reflect anymore. It actually absorbs 50% of projectile damage, but in doing so, to make it feel like you're still reflecting, you do actually fire back flame damage at the target. So in those situations, if that happens, you could actually get 500 magicka back if you apply a burner status effect. This can be put in place of Igneous Shield if you find that the shield's not benefiting you enough and you've got too much projectile stuff coming at you. That was supposed to go there, but I forgot. Choices, again, up to you. Igneous, Fossilize, or this. You've seen me on live stream, hopefully, with this. Sometimes I swap it out for other stuff. Depends. This increases the amount of damage you can block by 10%. This increases your healing received if you have a Draconic Power ability active by 12%. So if you do have your resistance buff active, all of your heals are stronger. And if you use, obviously, Igneous Shields, it makes it even stronger still. So they stack. This increases your health recovery by 5% for each Draconic Power ability on your bar. So we do actually have 2 on the front bar. So this one here and this one here. Although we've got a 10% reduction to our health recovery as a vampire, we've got a 10% increase to health recovery with these 2 skills on the bar, which is quite nice. And all of your melee-based abilities that have 5 meter range have 2 meters extra. So we have a really decent range on our light and heavy attacks. So we don't have to be right in the face of the enemy. We can actually get to a reasonable distance and still reach. We can take quite a large swing. Any melee abilities we use, even Venom Claw and Dizzying Swing actually hits quite far anyway. So we've got a decent range on that particular skill versus other classes. Earthen Heart's very important, of course. This increases the duration of Earthen Heart abilities, so therefore your Igneous Shields last longer, and so does your Corrosive Armor if you choose to use them, as do any of these, including Molten Armaments, which is a very hefty buff. Battle Roar is important. If you use an ultimate, you get resources back. 48 of health, stamina, and magicka for every point cost. So if you use Batman, you will get that back 113 times, and if you use this, you'll get it back 206 times. So the choice is yours, obviously, which one you use, but that will benefit you no matter what. If you're low, use an ultimate. When you cast an Earthen Heart ability, you and your group gain Minor Brutality. This will give everyone 10% increased weapon damage just by activating it for 20 seconds, you included. And you'll get 3 ultimate back if you use it a minimum of 6 seconds apart. So if you do it within 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, it doesn't do anything. If you, except for reapply the brutality. But if you use it after 6 seconds of the last one, you'll get ulti back. So it's quite helpful. This also, if you use a non-stamina Earthen Heart ability, you get 990 stamina back. So this gives you a damage shield, it gives you extra healing, it gives everyone Minor Brutality, it gives other people a damage shield as well, and of course it gives you stamina back. So it's a bit of a dump there. You can't have this spammed all day long. We don't have the magicka to do it, especially if we're giving ourselves a resistance buff. But if you do use this, you will get stuff back. It's a very good emergency replenishment. Very nice indeed. Now, two-hander. These are important. Your light and heavy attacks will hit more targets. So up to 3 nearby enemies, 50% of the damage done. Make sure you don't miss your light attacks. Make sure you do weave your heavies occasionally, and you will do splash damage and area of effect. That's very helpful, especially to getting people down very quickly inside your damage over time here, your damage over time here, and your execute where you hit multiple targets. You can kill many people at once. Oh, also Batman as well. That's area of effect. Now, the type of weapon you use depends on what it does. So we're not using a sword to get increased 6% extra damage. We're not using an axe for the bleed. We are using a mace. This will go through 20% of your target's physical resistance. So if they have 10k physical resistance, we go through 20%. If they have 30k physical resistance, we go through 20%. This shreds people. So make sure if you can, you get a maul. This is a two-handed maul. Very, very important. No resistances means they can't obviously defend against your abilities, and you'll hit as hard as you can hit for your character. This reduces the stamina cost of your two-hander abilities by 15%. Obviously, you want to get the cost down for those. When dealing damage with a fully charged heavy attack, I said this earlier about off balance, your next direct attack used within 7 seconds deals 10% more damage. So, your Dizzying Swing, if you heavy attack after it, during the off balance period, your next direct ability is going to hit harder, whether that's another Dizzying Swing, or another heavy attack, or a light attack, or an execute, or whatever. Anything that's direct will be stronger. So heavy attack first, kill them second. Increase your stamina recovery by 30% for 10 seconds after killing a target. That's right, if you kill someone, you get 30% increased stamina recovery. That ends up quite mental. So as soon as you've wrecked somebody, you've got that recovery to go and wreck somebody else quite quick. Bow is very important, of course. The longer range you are, the more damage you do with your ability. So if you are leading up to a fight with a poison injection lethal arrow, they will hit harder from range. This increases your crit rating on that bar. That's not beneficial to our damage. That's only going to help us for our heals, but we'll take it anyway. This reduces the cost of bow abilities. That also stacks alongside the DK abilities, where you get a reduction to poison abilities. So that's quite a nice reduction as well. Don't miss your light and heavy attacks, because if you do light or heavy attack, you'll get 5% increase to your bow abilities. If you do it up to 5 times, you can stack it up to 5 times, and it lasts for 5 seconds unless you redo it, and then it will just reset the timer and continue and continue and continue. Do not miss them. They're very important, and that's the difference between hitting someone reasonably hard with your bow skills and killing them. Also, if you dodge roll, you will obviously evade, but you will run faster for 4 seconds. Remember, do not dodge roll too close to a previous one unless you have to, because it will cost you more. We are using not all medium armor. We're using 5 medium, so we'll take this for the crit bonus per piece, the stamina recovery and reduction to cost. We'll take this for the sneak bonus, which is very beneficial indeed, especially since we're going to hide and then jump out of sneak occasionally. This increases your weapon damage, but you must have 5 pieces worn, and this increases your movement speed and reduces the cost of dodge roll. So we're very, very agile. We do not have a massive amount of resistances. We have a decent amount, but we do not have tank resists. We have to really utilize our agile side of the medium armor and make sure that we do dodge and weave and all that good stuff as and when we can. Just be careful of your stamina bar, because that's the same bar you use to do damage, to sprint, to dodge, to block, to heal, everything. So maintain your resources, make sure you heavy attack. We are using 2 pieces of heavy armor to get this increased resistance bonus, which is quite helpful. We also get back 108 magicka and stamina per piece worn once every 4 seconds if we get hit. So we actually get 216 back every 4 seconds. It's good resource recovery just for free, just for being in the fight. We do want to get hit because the build is designed for that. And we also get increased health recovery. Again, remember our health recovery is down, but we do have a decent amount. So if you're using Artaeum Takeaway Broth, we're in a good position. Juggernaut is very, very helpful. This increases your max health by 2% for each heavy armor piece worn. We are actually wearing 2, and you don't need these because they require 5. So get the first 3. You can go 1 light, 1 heavy, 1 medium if you really want to. You're going to have the same health amount once you get to the Undaunted passives, but the heavy armor did give us a bit more resources back. It did help a lot more with the extra resistances, so 2 heavy, 5 medium. Vampire, of course, is incredibly important. You do not have to be a vampire if you don't want to be, but if you do want to be an agile, medium armor wearing PvPer, you're going to have to be quick. And this passive here makes you fast in sneak. When you sneak, you are slower. This negates that penalty completely. I'm not losing it. I'll take the increase the cost from the vampire, the 3%. I'll take the extra flame damage in place of this because I do sneak around a lot, as do most people in PvP, and I don't want to be caught short really, really slow. So this passive is very nice. Fighting skill is actually very important. If you kill Undead, Daedra, or Werewolf, which you may do in PvP, you'll get 9 ultimate. So get that passive. The rest are useless, we're not using them. But this is important, so do get it. Mage skill is not important, neither is that, neither is that. Undaunted is, this will give you a bonus if you take a synergy. Take the synergies, even in PvP, take the synergies. They'll give you something beneficial and you'll get 4% of your resources back. And of course, for using 2 different types of armor, we're in heavy and medium, we get a 4% resource bonus for health, stamina, and magic across the board. You will want these, especially if you're in Cyrodiil. It's a PvP build after all. This increases your weapon and spell damage by 10% and your mag and stamina recovery by 20% for 10 minutes after taking a lumber mill, a mine, a farm, or a keep. Make sure, of course, you take the resources. This will give you a buff. This increases the range of your long-range abilities by 5 meters while near a keep or outpost. Now, long-ranged abilities are 28 meters and above. So, the gap closer doesn't consider it. Poison injection does, and lethal arrow does. You have a massive range on this. You can actually just sit on top of the castle wall and just nuke people all day long. It's really fun. Oh, also caltrops is considered as well. So, those are important passives. And, of course, you want to make sure you get this. When you kill a player, you get 20 ultimate. Our main ultimate is very, very cheap. We can kill people in area of effect. And the more people we kill, the stronger we get, which is coming up. So this can be used quite a lot. This one is not that important for this one because obviously we're not using any assault abilities. This one is not important because we're not using any abilities in this bar, so you can dump this. This you will want. This increases your healing done by 20% near a keep, so you heal more in a keep battle. And this reduces the time it takes for you to res people. So these 2 passives are very important. This one, not so much. We are an orc, of course. You do not have to be. I can hear you screaming, oh my god, I want to be something else. Be something else. Be whatever you want. It doesn't matter. If you want to work on other benefits from other races, you can do that. You just have to consider what you lose or gain for the build. I personally am staying as an orc because of the way it is. This is a full-out Berserker build. We have 2k max stamina, 1k max health, and we heal for 630 health, which is less than PvP, of course, but it is a ticking heal once every 4 seconds just for using weapon abilities, including light and heavy attacks and dots. And we have a weapon damage increase, and we are fast, and we have a reduction to sprint. So we're quick, got good flat stats, decent health, we heal, we are supposed to be in the fight. The more we hit, the more we get back. Final passive, Alchemy. We are using immovable pots, so we can be immune to stuns for 10 seconds, and we get health recovery and stam recovery for 47.6 seconds with this passive. Without the passive, all 3 of those are much, much less. So you want to use your immovable potion as you enter the fight, or if you know a stun is coming, or you can just keep it running all the time and keep that constant recovery bonus. It's entirely up to you, depends on the situation. Now we're going to get into the gear, and this will make a lot more sense. Front bar, we're using the Maul of Fury, sharpened with an increased weapon and spell damage glyph. So we had 3.5k weapon damage earlier. This goes much, much higher, so we're cracking almost 4k. Now, The reason it's sharpened is because we want to go through as much physical penetration as possible, so all of our damage ignores a set amount of resistances. Remember, we've got the Love on Mundusome, which ignores 2.7 already with our traits. We've got this, which ignores 2.7. The Maul itself ignores 20%. We've got Major Fracture, which ignores 5280. It's ridiculous how much resistances we can actually go through. Not to mention, of course, we can go through all of them if we pop Corrosive Armor. So we are a shredder. We get max health, max stamina, and weapon damage for the whole set. And when you take damage, which we will, keep your resistance buff up, keep your heals up, you will increase your weapon damage. And this will give you 30 every time you take damage. Now, this will last for 5 seconds, but if you take damage again, it will start the timer again and add another stack and so on and so forth, up to 20 times. You can actually stack 30 weapon damage 20 times, which is 600 weapon damage on top of the 4k we already had. However, this effect can occur once every half a second. So every half a second, this can tick, 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 all the way up to 20. It doesn't take very long to get there. You can actually get there in 10 seconds flat. Now, if you reach 20 stacks, then the duration is going to be doubled. So when you get to 20 stacks, you get to that 600 weapon damage, you've now got 10 seconds worth of that huge weapon damage where you can just obliterate people. Once you get to 20 stacks, though, when you get that double duration, you can't stack anymore until it's run off. Once it has run off, you can start again. But it's very, very strong. Make sure you're getting hit. Make sure you're taking damage. Make sure you keep yourself alive. And for doing so, the more involved in the fight you are, the harder you will hit. Now, we've done this in a very specific layout. So we've done one weapon on the front, which is a maul, and one weapon on the back, which is a bow. Now, the bow has double dot poisons on it. Both of those do damage over time, and both of those do have a chance to proc a poison status effect, which will give you stamina back. Remember, on your bow bar, we're actually really good with our sustain because our abilities are so cheap, plus the poison status effect that's guaranteed from the bow already, from Lethal Arrow, will give us stuff back as well. This is also sharpened to make sure we've got heavy pen on the back bar, although it's not as much as the front, because the front is the maul. And this also is what you should be using to lead into the fight. If you don't have the bow as well, you can put agility if you want, but you're going to lose your stacks when you're on the back bar. So the reason for it being on both bars is so that we can consistently pile up those stacks in combat while we're taking damage, no matter what we're doing. So if we have to swap bars to put a Lethal Arrow on to reapply that defile, or if we have to be on the front just to kill someone, we don't lose the stacks no matter what. We are using one piece Krag. The reason for that, 1487 physical penetration. More physical pen. We've got loads. In fact, if you are going against an 18200 target, so just a PvE target, we actually crack almost 20 or just over 20k penetration with the maul and everything considered. If the target has more resistances, we go through even more of it because it's 20% of what they have. Now, the reason we're using one monster piece is because we're actually using 2 pieces of fury on the jewelry, 1 piece of fury on the shoulder. The helmet is a monster set on purpose, not the shoulder, because the helmet is much, much easier to definitely get. The shoulder you could be spending on Daunted Keys all day. The helmet, you go in a dungeon, you're guaranteed one. Heavy helmet, heavy shoulder obviously be in the set. So fury is 2 weapons, front and back, so it's 2 pieces. 1 on the shoulder, that's 3. 2 on the jewelry, that's 5. Weapon damage on everything, healthy on both jewelry, but the other piece of jewelry is Malakav's Band of Brutality. This is obviously from the Antiquity system, and this comes in Bloodthirsty, so that's quite handy. We want it in Bloodthirsty on purpose. This increases all of your damage that you do all the time by 25%. So we have 20k physical penetration from most targets, unless they're really tanky, in which case we have more. We have no resistances to the targets if we use Corrosive Armor. And all the time, we do 25% increased damage while we're cracking way over 4k weapon damage. In fact, closer to 5, because we've got the 600 and they stack and so on and so forth. Now, this does remove your ability to crit. Why is that not a problem? Well, in PvP, most people are packing in pen anyway. So if you hit them with crits, you're basically trying to smack a tank with a feather duster. It's not going to do anything. So we've removed our ability to crit. No more crits for us. Everything is 100% flat. So we're going to go straight through the one thing we want to hit, and that's their health through the resistances. We've got the penetration. We've got the flat damage. We don't need to crit. Strip them of their health and kill them. Now, this doesn't affect your heals because it says crit damage. So while you can't critically damage someone, you can still critically heal for yourself. So the 30% extra crit chance that we do have does still contribute towards our own vigor and our rally. So it's very helpful to still have those bonuses there. That's why we have the extra crit. Although it's built into the build anyway, that's where it benefits. Now, the set we're using on the body is also very important. Bear in mind, 25% increased extra damage, 600 extra weapon damage for being in the fight. We have Heem Jazz, which I still think is one of my most favourite sets in the game. It's nuts. They buffed it a while back as well for a longer duration. This is the full Berserker setup. Longer in the fight, more weapon damage. In the fight, shit tons of penetration. This, it has stamina recovery, it has flat stamina, it has weapon crit, and when you are within 28 meters of an enemy you are in combat with, and they die, you get Major Berserk for 5 seconds, increasing all of your damage done by 25%. So basically, as long as you've hit one of those targets, or they have hit you, and you are in the fight with them, or you're just involved in the fight anyway, whichever way, shape, or form, however you are engaged in the fight. If they die within 28 meters, even if you don't get the kill, you will get Major Berserk. Every single kill around you is going to give you a refreshed 5 seconds worth of Major Berserk, which stacks with everything else we have. 25% increased damage, 600 extra weapon damage from this, crap tons of penetration, stupid skills, knocking them off balance, stunning them, all that good stuff, debuffing with really, really nasty heal debuffs, all at the same time. And that is why you take full advantage of this. This execute deliberately is area of effect, so the more people you start killing, the stronger everything gets, and you just kill and kill and kill and kill. It's a domino effect in area of effect, because one target dies, everyone else is now about to get wrecked even harder. And this is when you take advantage of take flight. You don't jump in with it to start the fight. You jump in as soon as you see your arms glow red and you know Major Berserk is on. As soon as you hear it or see it, because there is an audio cue as well, that's when you want to start doing the really heavy stuff. So maintain your resources, apply your debuffs, keep your buffs up, keep your heals up, and as soon as you see anybody die, it's go time. That will take some practice, but once you get comfortable with it, it's really, really nice. Some people have seen it on the stream, some people haven't, but this has been adapted since then, because I deliberately didn't show you the full setup on the stream. What you saw is the old version of it, which is still really, really strong. Now we're going to go into champion points. Take into account, of course, in Battlegrounds, your stats will be different, your recovery will be different, your resistances and your trip resistances will be different. It's because you don't have champion points in there. But it still works really well. You're just a bit squishier. However, you hit like a steam train on acid. So make sure that you get in and kill those people. 72 into Ironclad to reduce the amount of direct damage you take, which will take a lot. And 40 into Resistance to increase our crit resistance by 1k. 43 and 43 into Elemental Defender and Hardy to reduce all damage we take by 10% from pretty much everything. And also Thick Skin to reduce dot damage by 15%. Unchained to give us a cheaper ability, basically. This is built into our passives because we have this many points in our tree. We have 120. So if you do have to break free, and in PvP you will do, your next stamina ability within 5 seconds is 80% cheaper. So use something expensive. Fling out a Caltrops. Do whatever you want. 19 points in a quick recovery to give us a heal and receive bonus of 5%, and 16 points into Expert Defender to reduce all light and heavy attacks from players by 10% as well. Now just bear in mind, we do have the Field Physician passive. We do res very fast in PvP if you obviously have the passive. This will give you a reduced amount of damage while doing so. Just be aware, of course, you can be interrupted while resing. And of course, this will give people mag recovery back once you res them as well. So these two passive bounce off of these quite nicely, and they're there for free. 44 points into Warlord to reduce the cost of break free. 64 in Tenacity to increase the amount we get back from a heavy attack. And 64 to give us more recovery. Don't go too far into these because they can get bloody expensive just for the extra 1%. Normally I go to about 75, but I want the extra points, so 64 is just fine. 56 into Tumbling to reduce the cost of dodge roll, which we need. Obviously, when we're using our main resource bar to dodge, block, heal, damage, all that good stuff, get the cost down. And Befoul, 42 points into here. Now, as you saw, Defile does actually reduce the target's healing received and health recovery by 18%. It's supposed to be 15. But we've buffed it a little bit by putting points into Befoul, because this actually affects those debuffs. So this is a very important one as well. Make sure you get this. 19 points into Blessed to increase all of our healing done. That does stack with Igneous Shields, giving us a 25% bonus there, plus this. We have 11 points into Physical Weapons Expert. Don't miss those light and heavy attacks. 11 points into Shattering Blows to increase the damage we do to damage shields, because people will be using them. 66 at Master Arms to all direct damage attacks, including your lights, including your heavies, and your skills. We have the Butcher passive, so the lower people's health is, the more damage we do with lights and heavies. So make sure when their health goes low, it's either light attack or heavy attack, then followed by the Execute. Don't just spam Execute on its own. Make sure you weave the lights and heavies so they do connect. 23 into Thermaturge. We do have a small amount of damage over time, so this will contribute, but it's not a major part of the build, but this will buff it a little bit. Precise Strikes is not that important because we can't crit, although it does benefit us for our heals, so you do want to do that. More points into Piercing to give us 4476 physical penetration. We have so much pen, it is ridiculous. We can go straight through resistances, so this is very helpful. And 56 points into Mighty to increase our physical poison disease damage. Don't panic if you go low health. We do have a passive here that gives us ultimate regen if we go low, so dodge roll, get out of trouble, heal, whatever you've got to do. And if you're really, really low at the time, you will actually gain your ultimate really quickly. You can come back in with your ultimate and gain resources back for applying it. So this is a buff, but just keep an eye on it when you're low health. Don't die, obviously, but if you go low, don't panic. This is going to benefit you. And if we hit enemies that are off balance, which we will, because we can knock them off balance with Dizzy and Swing, we'll do 10% more damage. We do a lot of extra damage. We've got stack and bonuses left, right, and center. Now, we're pretty much there, but I'm just going to briefly go over what you should really do if you're trying to get into a fight. Don't just run up to someone and go like this. That's useless. Keep your buff up, resistance buff. Keep your rally up, your brutality and your heal. Now, you could do this. Run in, light attack Dizzy multiple times until they're low, and then execute them to death, if you wanted to. But what I tend to do, because most people sit there wasting so many resources trying to fight someone that can heal all day long, what I tend to do is this. Lethal Arrow with a light attack. So you can either light attack Lethal Arrow straight away, because you've been hit with both then, or you can go from stealth and just Lethal Arrow straight from there. As soon as you've let go of that button, as soon as that is firing, you want to light attack Poison Injection. So, like lethal, like poison, swap bars, get in. That can be done very, very fast. Or if you need the fracture down, if someone else hasn't done it, you can Lethal Arrow, like poison, like caltrops, turn straight in. When I say turn, I mean weapon swap. So that's your burst, basically, or your introduction to the fight. You've defiled them straight away, you've got your execute dot on them, you've got your fracture, they're about to come to you, but you've come to them anyway. Keep them in the caltrops. There's now 2 damage over time abilities on the ground, there's a defile on them, and there's a dot on them which is going to kill them. Bear in mind, this defile only lasts for 4 seconds, so make sure that you do reapply it as and when you have to. If the fight is going on for too long, even if you're face to face, there's no harm you swapping bars, reapplying defile and poison injection, and then carrying on. Do not let that run out, because otherwise they will heal to full. So again, to refresh, if you're starting the fight, all you really need to do is Lethal Arrow, poison injection, caltrops, get in, start slapping faces, ultimate them or execute them or whatever you've got to do. Very simple. Keep your buffs up, don't let them run out. I know some people like to run up and just spam Dizzy and Swing, but if they don't have that defile on them, they are going to out-heal your damage. Very importantly, of course, if you see your hands glow red or you hear the alert for it, you'll notice it if you're using it enough. Someone has just died, which means your damage has just gone up. That's when you want to hit really, really hard and start executing people if they're low health, or just hit them hard in general. If one of these dies, then the rest will get hit harder. If you're executing this one and he's low health, the harder you hit him, the more damage they'll take, so they'll go down quicker, then you can start on the next one, and so on and so forth. You can actually domino effect kill mass groups of people as long as you can keep yourself alive. Each person that dies will give you that buff again. Now, it's very hard to demonstrate that for all situations because every fight is different. Every class is different, every build is different, every skill you're going to get hit with or player interaction could be different. So I can't give you the full, you must do this all the time, because this definitely works. It's all about the player. But make sure you're taking some damage, or you're in a fight with someone. Make sure you apply your defile, and make sure you keep on top of your resources. That's the best advice I can give you. Don't let them heal over top of your damage, because you'll burn out. And as soon as you see someone die, make sure you're hitting really hard afterwards, because you've just got that boost. So hopefully that helps, hopefully that isn't too boring, hopefully you now understand the build a bit better, and hopefully you have some fun with it. But first of all, thank you all very much for watching, I hugely appreciate the support. If you have not subscribed already, please do hit that button, it is free. Furthermore, if you want to help support outside the channel, there are some links in the info section for Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, and of course the website xynodegaming.com, where all the written guides are as well. Once again, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.